Hey, Debbie, welcome to the Happy, Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, Elizabeth. It's great to be here.
Nice to see you too. It's been a long time. I know we met so many years ago, it feels like, in I think it was 2016, the first caregiving national caregiving conference that I went to in Chicago, and you were there.
It was.
Yeah, so many people. I find it interesting that there's still so many tight relationships from those conferences. And this is just one example.
Yes, yes. Those were wonderful conferences and really a great hotbed of collaboration and meeting each other. And you're right. I have lasting friendships from those early days.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we kick off the shows with a little bit of inspiration, words of wisdom from Happy Healthy Caregiver Jar, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on today's message. It says, so many of
What a
them are
great
like,
idea.
so many are like, pick me. They're flying out of the jar. It says, to get through the hardest journey, we need take only one step at a time, but we must keep on stepping. And that's actually a Chinese proverb. To get through the hardest journey, we need take only one step at a time, but we must keep on stepping.
Hmm.
What is that? Does that remind you about anything with caregiving?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think that's a fabulous saying. And it also applies to what I'm doing this week, which is launching my second book. But it's with caregiving, I think it's so difficult to keep our focus on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and also to see some perspective of the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, because no one wants to look at the light at the end of the tunnel because it's not a light, it's the
Mm-hmm.
end. And so I think just taking that step at one at a time is always something good to remember. And we can also apply this, I think, to self-care. I know you talk a lot about self-care. It's very overwhelming to uh, think you have to do everything that we know is involved in self-care. Like I can't even do it, and I'm not even actively caregiving right now. It's very, very challenging. So when you're caregiving, just getting a little movement in your day, making sure you're not eating junk food to take a shortcut, um, getting a little time for yourself, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes. All of those things are so important. Sleep, getting enough sleep. And let's say you don't get enough sleep one night, you get 4 hours. Well, why don't you take one step and make sure you get 6 hours the next night?
Mm-hmm.
They say you cannot catch up on sleep, but I've been testing that all my life. But yeah,
Yes.
I think and your proverb that you pulled, the proverb you pulled, brings to mind another one, another Asian one about the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So it's
Yeah.
the same idea, right? It feels really big, but if you can just take that one step, you open up your world to another
Yes.
spectrum of choices.
Just start. I mean, that's basically like just start. That gets out of your own head. And what about Bob, that movie where he just like, one thing at a time, because you think about the big picture, and it's overwhelming, and it's just the one day at a time. There's a lot of gifts in that. And then I think sometimes too, like the about the steps, what made me probably, capture these. Sometimes I'm like, what made me capture this quote and put it in my jar is, I think too, we try to wait till we have all the answers on everything, and sometimes we got to make a decision with the best information we have at the time, and we put a stake in it and we move forward, and then there's no looking back and regretting it, because we made those decisions with the best info we had.
And that's such a good point, Elizabeth, that we can't always know exactly everything we need to know. So getting started is a way to start knowing as well, I
Hmm.
believe. So you can, because you make a decision and then you course correct.
Yeah, yeah, every day, every day.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, Debbie, about your caregiving story.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. My caregiving story is like so many others. Um, you know, hard to tell. And also, but I also get great comfort out of telling it, because it honors my mom. And, my mother was 75 years old when she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she was completely healthy up to that point. No, just
Wow.
vitamins, just vitamins. Yeah. Wow, indeed. And in our family, of super strong women, right? We're pretty much guaranteed 85 to 90, and a lot of us make it past 90. So
Wow.
76 was just too early, and so early and such a shock for her. I was working, I have a long-term career in Japan, working as a market researcher, and so I was running my business in Tokyo. And when my mom was diagnosed, I became a caregiver from afar. So for the first year, I was immediately, of course, escalated my trips home. And those are international, 20-hour door-to-door trips. And
Yes, that's a leveled up long distance caregiver. That needs its own name.
exactly,
International distance caregiver.
supercharged from afar.
Yeah.
But it's no, even if you're 3 hours away or you're an 8 hour drive away, it's the same set of problems, right? You're not there. I was very fortunate. My sister lived about an hour from my mom in the same town, so where we all grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. So um, we were able to get through the first year fairly well. And my sister, who lived nearby, was also a respiratory therapist professionally. So imagine the fortune
Yes.
of having a respiratory therapist in your family on your care team for a lung cancer patient. So, that was a really amazingly fortunate thing. And my other sister lived here in Texas, where I live now. So she was 3 states away, and both of them had full-time jobs. And of course, I was
And you
running
did too.
yeah, we
Yeah.
were all and I was running my business in Japan. And we didn't have time for such a thing, and none of us, no caregivers, have time for this. We've got our own lives. We
Uh-huh.
got you have children. I don't have children, but I owned my own business. That was my child, and I was working flat out. And we somehow made it through the first year, Elizabeth. We spotted each other. My middle sister took care of the daily needs, because she was close by, and then my other sister and I would fly in and give that third sister a break. And we spotted each other literally. After 1 year of that, this is the for me, this is the most hardest hitting fact from my experience that really drove home to me why I need to be working in this space. 3 strapping 50-something-year-old daughters, okay, all in perfectly good health, were completely spent after 1 year of what I would call pretty light caregiving.
Mm.
Okay, now we can all argue about whether chemotherapy is light caregiving or not. It's not fun, but it's a lot easier than what happened in the last 6 months. Let me just put it that way.
Right, right. Where you're lifting and your care, the physical, there's an emotional strain and then there's the physical demands. And then when you layer that together, it's an overwhelming sandwich for sure.
Exactly. And after 1 year, the other thing that's really important is that, again, spotting each other, all of those, my 2 sisters' FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, was expired after one
Mm.
year. And one worked for the government and one worked for a hospital system. So they had good programs. But imagine that, right? And of course, I owned my own business, so I was up front and center to give up my my situation, because I was the only one who actually could manage to go home and help
Mhm.
my mom. And fortunately, I had a fabulous young team in Tokyo, and this was in 2007 and 8. So we did have, of course, the internet and all kinds of things, and I already had a pretty fully leveraged laptop lifestyle, flying around all over the place and doing my work. So I moved back to Greenville, South Carolina, and I ran my Tokyo business off my mom's dining room table. And maxing out time zones and Office Depot and whatever service I could get, to do that. And it was pretty hairy. But my mom and I had a deal. My mom was a business person, by the way, like a Fortune 500 purchasing agent. So she had no trouble saying what she wanted and, when. So we had a deal. She said, I really would love it. I said, I want to come home and help you because you need help and it's not safe for you to be alone. And she goes, I can't have you doing that, right? I can't have you giving up your life. And I said, look, I'm bringing everything with me. I'm going to set it up on your dining room table. And she goes, okay, then the 4 hours that we have the helper every weekday morning, those are your hours. I'm not going to interrupt you. Those are your work hours. Well, you know what really happens, Elizabeth, right? Then I'm going to the grocery store. I'm doing things that you got to do as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
I
Running a
actually,
household and everything. Yeah.
yeah. So I actually did most of my work late at night after my mom went to sleep, and that was okay. It worked out okay. We had a good deal. She was very true to her part of the deal, and we did have a 4 hour a day helper 5 days a week. Now that's another amazing thing that I want to point out. So I have first of all, I have two sisters we can share, and we got
Yes, sister power. Shout out
yeah,
to sister power.
and we got along. We lots of families just implode. And
Mhm.
so my sisters and I have always been a team. We were able to work together. One of them was a respiratory therapist, a medical professional. I had my own room at my mom's house. We had 4 hours a day, 5 days a week helper. That was amazing. Many people do not have even those three things. And so I like to say, Elizabeth, that my situation was pretty much as good as it gets.
Right. And yet still not great. Like you're not getting enough sleep. You're not, you need to clone yourself to get to be the person to pay the bills and go to the grocery store. But to your point, like
Absolutely.
I know why you're sharing that. You're sharing that because you want to make the point that like you had these opportunities and you made it work, but we are the exception. I would say I'm the exception too. We have a little nest egg. My family did get along. My work was very understanding of me taking my break. I didn't have to take FMLA. I could have had I needed to, but it was just like they said, you do what you need to do, which was a nice gift. I still worked, but not everybody has that. And we have to kind of set up our world, not for the best case scenario, but kind of for the worst case scenario in some ways, or even the middle of the road case scenario would be a big step in the right direction.
I agree, Elizabeth. And I guess the point, it's all of those points. We definitely need to be thinking about the worst case scenario. And also, even though mine, in my opinion, and yours maybe too, were sort of best case scenarios, it almost killed us all. I mean, we were uh, it's been 11 years this fall. I'll probably never be the same anyway, but
No.
and and
And
that's
I still
okay.
cry sometimes. I still cry. I
Oh
still
yeah.
leak. I still have my own trauma from it. Um,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. And so even in the best cases, this is an incredibly difficult job. And so we want to be especially mindful of how much harder it is on people who don't have any resources. And so you know,
It's good for you
that
to have
that's
the compassion of that. Like, I think that is a gift, Debbie, to have the compassion to see that not everyone's situation is the same as mine and yours. Like, I had someone comment, I had a nice news story lately that went out, a segment, and it was kind of like, wait, what's the big deal? Like, someone kind of commented, and it was kind of like, what's the big deal? Don't we just take care of our older parents? They took care of us. Like,
I saw
this.
that comment.
Yes. And I was like, I don't know if you saw my response to it, but I was like, how do I respond to this? It's like assuming that everybody's situation is yours. And that is not the case. Like, and just because, they survived it or we survived it doesn't mean that it can't be way better for other people. I don't know. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on that? Like, it's
I believe it can be better. I think we all have the power at any time in our lives, in any situation. It could be your career, it could be anything, self-care, anything, even unrelated to caregiving. We all have the power to choose how our situation and our experience is going to be. And we can't always control all the pieces and parts within it. And it's not always going to be easy, but we can make a choice every day to be happy and joyful, for example. We can make a choice to have our caregiving experience be something that gives us something in our lives rather than takes something away. And I advocate making your caregiving experience a transformative one. So for me, I'm looking retrospectively. I didn't have this perspective when I went into it, but what I saw was that I had to dig so deep emotionally, and I did not have the tools that I needed in many cases. And so what I advocate is to be proactive as a caregiver about getting the tools you need. And I know this sounds easy. It's like saying, please take care of yourself. And you just want to strangle the person, right?
no. Well, the statement alone makes you want to strangle, but if you share the how, and you can share the how, because that's why I
Yeah.
have family caregivers on this show. It's like we are the experts. We've walked this talk. We talked and walked this talk, and so you get to say it. You get to say it because you share the tips. So how
Yes.
would how would you live that out? And we call you a Godspeed caregiver, right? Like after you've gone through your transformative experience, and you do have that gift of hindsight.
Oh,
So
I
what?
didn't know that. That's good. Okay. I got a new term I can write down.
Yes, yes. Well, through the stages of caregiving that Denise Brown teaches, the last one is the Godspeed. After caregiving ends. So what would not like shooting on yourself, because I definitely don't want to do that, because grace, you get all the grace, but just reflecting on it, like as a caregiver advocate, would you have done something differently?
Yes, there's a couple of things. There
What
are
are
a
they?
couple of things. Well, one of them is that even though we had a really good plan, and I'm a big planning advocate, and my family, that was another advantage. We had a good plan. We Even though we had a really good plan, and we had the wills and the power of attorney and the do not resuscitate and all of those things done, and I knew where everything was, and we had a lot of those pieces in place. The one thing we had not talked about was what were we going to do at the end when my mom needed more help than the three of us could offer. And that was we couldn't know how bad it was going to be, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you think it's going to be fine. And my mother said, oh, you girls can help me, right? It's fine. But actually, Elizabeth, it was really, really hard. And near the end, about 3 weeks before my mom died, it was just getting so intense that it was becoming untenable. And my mother had long-term health care insurance. This is another great thing that was, see, you had it too. So that these are amazing things. 13% of the population over 65
We
has.
didn't have it, but my parents were financially okay, so it didn't matter.
So that's excellent, right? That is such a relief.
Mm-hmm.
But we, we had not, we had that part-time helper 4 hours a morning, right? And I
And is
said,
that got paid for through the long-term care?
yes,
Okay, good.
yes. And that was fantastic. It was such a relief to have her. And I said to my mother, we need more, Mom. I need another 4 hour shift person, right? And because I'm not getting my work done, and it's just getting super intense. And I joked with my mom. I said, you need a body slave, right? You need somebody just sitting there waiting for whatever it is you need.
On-demand
And
care like an infant.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so my mother, of course, near the end, no one wants new people in the house, right? Dying is a very private thing. And we know my mom's going, and she knows she's going. We all know the facts. We're trying to make the best of it. You don't want a stranger in the house. It's a very weird energy, to have somebody you don't know
Yeah.
in the house when you're trying to do something so personal. And so, but I begged my mom. I said, look, we have more money. We have more insurance left. And I even used the argument with her, like, we're going to lose money. You're leaving money on the table, man. Like that's what I said to her.
Well, because you knew her business brain would get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, use whatever you can, use the
Yeah.
manipulation you can.
Yeah.
So she said, well, okay, let's talk about it. And so uh, I vetted, you go through interviewing all these people and vetting them. And one of them got through me. I got her to my mom. My mom accepted her. We signed a contract. I had to force my mom to sign the contract with Kelly Temporary Services, which isn't around anymore. And this woman was going to come on Monday, and I was leaving on Friday on an international trip. And that was one of the other reasons why I wanted an extra helper in the house, because I knew my one sister would have her hands full.
Yeah.
So I found out while I was on my international trip that my mom fired the helper after a day and a half. It's like and the helper was fine. It wasn't the helper. It was just
Sure.
the
Your mom.
situation. Yeah, the situation. And I really respect everyone's right to end their lives the way they would like to, and to make it as pleasant as possible if you can. And I tried to be an agent to help my mom do what she wanted to do. I told my sisters after my mom fired this woman, I said, look, it's up to you, because the two of them were in charge while I was gone. I said, it's up to you. If you want to do it and you don't want to override mom's decision, but you have the ability to override her decision because she signed the paperwork. You just get another worker in there that you like, and just override her decision. But my younger sisters are not as mean as I am. so, so,
Yeah. You're the
so
tell it. Oh, you and I have a lot in common there, Debbie. You're the tell it like it is
yeah.
daughter. Tough love, I call it.
Tough love, yeah.
Hmm.
And my younger sisters couldn't do it. They couldn't override my mom's wishes. And I'm smiling, Elizabeth, because it's a bittersweet story to tell. We didn't get any extra help at the end, and my sisters were overwhelmed. I'm flying around to Tokyo in Australia doing my business thing, making speeches and stuff.
Which
And
you have to do to pay your bills. Like you do, that's okay. You guys had a tag team there, but it was overwhelming. I know your book, which I meant to have it here for the video, but I wrote about it in the last book haul that I did, the caregiving journey. And so people can really get a sense for some of your lessons you learned, the end of life. Like, yes, there it is. Thank you, Debbie. And I'll link to the blog post too, but there's a lot in there. And, you do a lot of speaking and things for businesses, because you've been you were a working caregiver that, like, and you have the tattered cape to prove it. But tell us a little bit about what you do with Aging Matters International.
Okay, so with Aging Matters International, I have two big projects. One is the first book that helps individuals, and the second is the second book that's coming out
There
next
it
week.
is.
I'm sorry, these
Nice.
are my stick. I'm still.
Yeah, it's a process. The caregiving crisis, it calls, what it costs your business and how you can fix it.
That's right. And
Yes.
this one's for companies. So what we realized pretty quickly, and I think all of us in this space realize, that we can help individuals and there's lots of things we can do. But if we cannot get it distributed, get the help distributed, it's really falling on deaf ears. So one of the distribution points for caregivers is companies. And that's because companies employ people, and 30% of every worker in America is a caregiver. So
That
that means
I'm
every,
surprised it's not higher actually.
well, that's as high as we can get it by the
Yeah.
documented statistics. But you're right, Elizabeth. It's probably, of course, if it's probably closer to 40. But
Yeah.
then if we include, and that would include, let's say, sandwich caregivers, if we go to 40, 30, 40, if we include rank and file parent caregivers, if I may, just not disabled children, just regular kids, then of course we're getting up to 60, 70%. But just when we talk about older adults and disabled children and under 18 and over 18.
Neurodiversity, all of that, military caregivers that are working.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 30 to 40% of the workforce. And
Mhm.
so I believe that the companies are a fabulous point through which to distribute education and training about caregiving. And I say that because we help people in companies with everything else, right? We help them with parenting. We help working moms with flex time. We help people with alcoholism problems and drug abuse. We help employees. Why can't we help the employees with their specific caregiver needs?
Yeah.
It's a known contributor to psychological, to emotional, physical, and financial stress. So it's an easy thing to work on when we think about being proactive
Yes.
and providing training and education that helps people to be better prepared and then to deal with it when they're in it.
I know for me, when I resigned from my corporate job last May, it'll be almost a year, but so I could pursue, thank
Congratulations.
you. Big deal. Gave myself a big pay cut to have a healthy caregiver full time, but I'm doing life's work and I'm doing my passion. So, but at working in that company, I was involved in the employee resource group for women. We didn't have one specifically for caregivers, but a lot of women, of course, are the caregivers. And I remember having conversations to try to change the dialogue where I worked. And it was a bit of a male network up top. It wasn't a bit, it was a male network at the top. And so it really just educating them about the woes of caregiving, and even some of those executives who became caregivers, like I was their person they would come in and talk to, and just offering speaking services with them in my role that I was in. But I remember too the challenges of like going to my boss and saying, I'm taking time, my personal time, to take my mom to the doctor. And he was kind of puzzled. Or no, it wasn't even that. I was going to do what you did, Debbie, of relieving my sister in Michigan.
Right.
Every 3 months, we kind of had this deal where I would go and I would relieve my sister with my mom. And so I would take that. And I said, this is not vacation time. And he was like looking at me, and I was like, this is caregiving. Like, I'm going to care to be there with my mom. And this is personal time off, however you want to count it. But this is, so it just, even the challenges there with it, it's like, I think that and then I would have to show him, I'm like, actually, you can take PTO for any member of your direct family. But it's just like educating. And I just was thinking to myself, it shouldn't be this hard to, explain the time there. And like I said, I had a company, and I'd build trust with my company but not everybody has that capability. And I know they were changing they were late to the game even with maternity leave. So they were way behind the 8 ball, and they were changing the leave so that it could be more general for a caregiving leave, or a parental leave was in the works. But is it getting better? I think is my question. Like, you're in these conversations? Like, I'm going to employers and I'm speaking on caregiving and self-care, and I'm excited to see, like, I know one example was I inspired them to start their own caregiver affinity group. And I love that. But are you seeing it get better, and what can employers do to make it better?
So I'm thinking that it is getting better, Elizabeth. I estimate that about a third of all companies have the basic. Well, let's put it this way: a little more than the mandatory. Okay,
Okay.
and then let's say another the other 2/3 have the mandatory, but that varies from state to state, and it also varies with the size of the company. So a company with 50 or less, 50 employees or less, I don't think they have to do certain things. They don't have to follow FMLA.
Right.
That's a federally mandated thing. So smaller, when you get into smaller companies, you get into a whole other situation. It's kind of variable based on the state and the owner, if you will. So that's a definite concern for you and I to look at when we think of caregivers. And we could talk about helping caregivers in the workplace, but actually that's only addressing about half of the workforce, because the rest of them are contract workers or working in smaller companies that don't have to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So my feeling is, Elizabeth, that the and I know we all, everybody who talks about everything, it's kind of like looking for the silver lining in COVID. But honest to God, the prolonged pandemic has helped highlight this problem. And I am so thankful for that. We were screaming into a dark hole before. I'm sure you've sensed this,
Oh,
right?
I think the same thing. I mean, my heart was breaking for the caregivers who were at home the sandwich ones in particular, who were managing the virtual school and working their job and caregiving. And then, oh my gosh, there's the pets around all the time. And these people got to eat more meals at home. And I'm an empty nester now. I didn't have those. My kids are in college when all of that, but yes, I do think it has gotten their attention, and I think that is why people are reaching out to folks like you and I to come in and offer resources and speaking, because I think they're also seeing the Great Resignation, right, where people are seeking sanity for their mental health, and just like life's too short. I'm gonna, and I guess I'm kind of included in that number, frankly, but it behooves them to also invest in their caregivers, because we need these people in our workforce.
We do. We do. And what we know is that companies are losing money little by little because of caregiver related cost. Things like absenteeism and productivity, things like turnover. Like when a caregiver has to leave the workforce, and that often happens in about 1/3 of the cases, the company loses the institutional knowledge, and they also have to rehire and retrain. So there are real costs to the tune of $68 billion a year for American businesses related to this bleed. And yet, as we know from the Harvard Business Review report called The Caring Company, companies are not tracking caregiver related costs. So my new book shows companies how to and what KPIs they can look at. How can you repurpose existing KPIs and add a few key performance indicators to help you understand and get your head around what this is costing your company? And so I help you do that, make a rough calculation. My book helps you look at your programs that you offer to all employees and look for good candidates for repurposing for caregivers' needs. And that's very easy to do. So you look at, let's say many companies have like stress and burnout prevention type course. So you take that course and you add 2 or 3 hours of training to it for caregivers. That's an easy slam dunk. You can do the same thing with financial and retirement planning, making sure that people have actually thought about and considered the idea of how they're going to pay or help their parents pay for long-term health care. You can do the same thing with health and wellness and self-care. So you can look at things that you basically already got, and you got working mom programs. Just plug caregiver in there and roll them out.
There's so many things I know that like I didn't know I even had at my company until way after I needed them. Like the employee assistance program. Like what if there was a caregiver affinity group or ERG, or there was some thing that was doing that to highlight that. But that's a perfect example, Debbie, of like, this existed. I could have gotten therapy for myself. I could have gotten therapy for other people in my household or my mom, potentially a grief counselor or something. I could have had them investigate we were doing it on our own, like finding the the assisted living communities that were going to be a fit for my mom. Like they have those people that do those data searches
Yeah.
for you.
Yes, some companies provide care coordination services, and they're sometimes they're voluntary, or sometimes they're
Yes.
already rolled in, or sometimes you can just get it for an extra cost, which is fine, right? It's
Yes.
just that you don't have to go look for it. And
Telehealth was another one.
telehealth, yeah. And then the company would have vetted them. So you wouldn't have to, as a caregiver, go through that agony of vetting. So it's a really, I think a lot more companies are getting into this game with looking at their overall workplace experience and the different kinds of employees. I see my job as, Elizabeth, is to make sure caregivers of older adults are in the line for benefits and help, because now we're in the back of the line right now. Okay, there's DEI, there's cybersecurity, there's let's get people back to work, remote work. There's all kinds of things diverting attention from caregivers of older adults. And this problem has existed for 30 years or more. So it's not a new problem, but the pandemic has shown us how bad it is. And also the aging of America and the rest of the world has highlighted for many people the hugeness of this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going away. It is not going away. It's only going to get worse. And my position is that if companies don't proactively address this, it's just going to become a bigger and bigger problem. Oh, I didn't mention what future healthcare costs, because let's say you're a caregiver and we know that you're going to suffer emotionally and physically, at least, maybe financially as well. The stress that you undergo often has implications later in your life, in your health. So it's more expensive for companies.
And my job productivity and my absenteeism and all of that, like
everything. So take care. If you're it's like anything else in life, Elizabeth, right? If you're proactive and you take one step at a time, going back to the first point of the show, you can actually improve the situation. And I'm asking companies to take one step, take the first step, take a look at what you're offering. And then once you take a look, you'll see where the gaps are. I help you take a look at it, identify the gaps, and then start filling them little by little over the next 3 years. And pretty soon you're going to be looking much, much better to your employees and to the communities that you serve.
Yes. I'm right there behind you, Debbie, pushing for it. And I know
you are.
I see everything that you're doing on I can't wait to read your book. First of all, you got to share it with me for the future book haul that will be coming on Happy Healthy Caregiver.
I will.
So again, the caregiving crisis, what it costs your business and how to fix it. I love that, because it's not like, hey, here are all the problems. It's like, no, these are the problems, just FYI. And then here's the nitty gritty on how you do this step by step. And I'm here to help you, or Debbie's here to help you. What?
It's not, can I say one more thing? It's not even that hard. It's not even that hard. It's like common sense.
Yeah.
It's common sense. Look at your programs, find the gaps, supercharge a few of them, right? With some modules for caregivers, add a few services that as you can, as a company, if you can afford concierge services for care coordination, et cetera, those are available. Those are absolutely available in the marketplace right now.
Would you call Torchlight one of those?
Yeah, I think Torchlight, Wealthy, those are great services that a company can pay for and provide for its employees. And you can companies could also broker long-term healthcare insurance to offer, for special deals for their employees. They could also offer coaching and counseling services there's
Legal services, all of that. Yes.
it's really, really limited by imaginations because caregivers need so much help. But it's not that hard and it's not that expensive even.
Yes.
But it's it's one of those things that gets swept under the carpet a lot. And I'm tired of that. So that's
No,
why I'm dedicating the rest of my life to it.
yes. Yeah. It's, yeah, I hear you. And you're on Clubhouse too, talking about it. I know there's you and some of your fellow advocates have gotten me to check out Clubhouse and be a part of that. But that's maybe just share a little bit of like, what is Clubhouse? Why would somebody maybe want to tune in to what y'all are doing there?
Okay, thank you. Clubhouse is an audio only format that kind of grew and became successful during the pandemic. It is a very interesting place where you can find thousands of different topics. If you just go to Clubhouse and start looking at what's there, you might turn it off because you'll just be like, if you're
Ah,
like me, yeah, you're
yeah.
overwhelmed. But in my case, I was really fortunate that one of my old friends from Tokyo, Linda Sherman, was leading a room called the Alliance for Age-Friendly Products. Let me say that again, Alliance for Age-Friendly Products.
Okay.
And that is co-sponsored by AARP and
Hmm.
AARP Innovation Labs, and also the Consumer Electronics Association. So it's got really good sponsorship. And we also gather people from many different disciplines. So we've got some caregiver experts, we've got product development experts, we've got inclusion in design experts, because we need to make sure when we're researching, we don't want hotshot 20-year-olds developing apps that no 65-year-old has ever tried. What
Right.
is that? Right?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So and if it sounds silly, but you would be amazed at how many things get through the gauntlet without actually having been properly tested with real users.
Hmm.
So we talk about that. We talk about marketing and messaging. Today in Clubhouse, we have it every Thursday, that room. Today we talked about the importance of nutrition, and we heard from some new alternatives that are coming into the retail store, alternatives to Ensure and Boost.
Oh
And
yeah.
like proper recipes with supercharged nutrients that are more than just empty calories.
Yes.
And we talked about it from the assisted living viewpoint. One of the chefs from one of the a really progressive assisted living community talked about how they use color, shape, and molding to make pureed foods look and taste palatable.
Mm.
And that was fascinating, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's the difference of taking a green bean and a mass of green beans that's pureed that looks olive green, and making it a little greener, and maybe making the form look a little more attractive.
Yes.
And then you see residents start actually picking up their fork and going for it instead of being more passive. So
Hmm.
you're encouraging independence. I mean, food is so important to our lives, and hydration as well.
I
So
was gonna say, did you talk about hydration? My husband
we
works for BioLite. I should have had him come on.
well, why don't you send me his information and we
Yeah.
will have him on the next one, because I know most of the
Yes.
topics we end up doing a second one later in the year, Elizabeth, because what happens is we learn so much in 1 hour that by
Yes.
having,
It overflows.
yes, 6 different people talk about it from 6 different angles, it's actually very interesting. And
I'll definitely
like
connect you. Yeah.
yes, please. We heard about hydro gummies today, and we also heard about Xenia TV, which is designed for dementia and cognitively challenged folks, and they have programming on in their lineup that encourages the care receiver to drink, and shows babies drinking, people drinking. It shows people drinking, and so it encourages a cognitively challenged person to drink more. And
Mm.
then also it will show somebody doing the hand over hand Tipa Snow method, helping. And so things are more normalized, and
Yeah.
drinking becomes a little easier. And these are really important things. So I'm sorry, I go off on Clubhouse, but
No, but I mean, that's good. I think that you're making a case for why people would want to tune in. So, yeah, Thursdays on Clubhouse, and we'll link to it. It's the Alliance for um,
age-friendly
age-friendly
products.
products is the room,
Yep.
which you need. So,
Yep.
yeah, no, I think that that's amazing. I
And
do.
oh, there's
Go ahead. One more thing.
one more room. I know we're running out of time, but one more room on Mondays, the first Mondays of every month. Christina Keys of caregiving.com and I do a room on shifting the culture of caregiving.
Ah,
So we talk with podcasters. This is the one you joined
yes.
us for. Thank you so much. We talk with podcasters, book authors, everybody participating in this space, trying to raise the level of the discussion and move towards good solutions.
I
It's
think
all
it's
about,
great.
yeah,
The
raising awareness.
they don't live on forever, right? Like, can you go in and find old ones?
Actually, now, if this is a Clubhouse has added replays. And
Okay.
that's very important, because I don't think any of us would be doing this very much if we didn't have replays. Yes, I want my words lasting for a while at least.
Yeah, I know the
Um,
one we talked on was on support. So I'll look for the replay link
yeah,
on caregiving support.
if you go to my Debbie the Carer at Debbie the Carer on Clubhouse, and you just scroll down through my bio, you will see all the rooms I've been a speaker in right there.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah, that's a good trick on Clubhouse to know. And you can just click on the room and hear the replay. I think you can download it. Let me just see. You can even download the audio.
And then
Yeah.
you can take it on a walk, which leads us into self care. So I definitely wanted to get a few self care prompts from you, Debbie, from my book, the Just for You Daily Self Care Journal. Um, and so I thought this was a question or prompt we haven't discussed in a while. It says, what is one of your favorite scents? SCENTS, like sniffing. What do you like what smells do you like?
Okay, I'm a big aromatherapy person, and I use doTERRA, but I think any aromatherapy is good. I have a bottle of frankincense right here on my
Hmm.
desk.
What is that
And
for?
this is a really it's kind of an abundance. It's kind of an orangey, it's got a really unusual smell to it. I think it's abundance and calmness, maybe. I'm not
Okay.
even quite sure, but I like this a lot. I like this a lot. And
Do you put it on your wrist or what do you do with it?
I put it right on my wrist, and I do this when I go to sleep. I just go like this. I would say if you have sensitive skin, you should totally test it. I have
Yeah.
never had a reaction, but sometimes people do, and I'm not a doctor, but I put it right on my skin. I'm kind of a rough and tough girl, so I just put it right on there. But you can also mix it with coconut oil if you want a
Mm,
little lighter application. And I also diffuse it in a little diffuser in my office. So I'm almost
perfect.
constantly doing either frankincense or what this orange scent that is all about abundance.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I love lavender and lang lang, and I mean, I always put aromatherapy on my wrist before I go to sleep, because then I can lay there like this
And just like
and
sniff.
just
Yeah.
sniff it, or I put it on my pajama sleeve. And so I totally use that. So I diffuse in my office, and I use it
Perfect.
on my wrist in my bedroom because my significant other doesn't like the diffuser. But the other thing I use scent for is in my body lotion. This is
Hmm.
absolutely a good self-care tip, I think. I made a goal about 5 years ago to put body lotion on after every shower. And because I noticed that I was just my skin was getting dry, but
Like crepey looking.
well, yeah, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of things that happen as you get older, but yeah, yeah, that's one of them. So but I wanted to, um, I got that routine of putting lotion on after every shower. And that was not an easy thing. You know, that's an extra thing to do. It takes a couple of minutes. It doesn't sound that big, Elizabeth, but when you're running around like I think we do, you know, an extra 2 minutes somehow seems like a lot. So I established that habit, that new habit. And this is what I always advise people in the self-care area: start with something small, get it going so that it becomes something that you would never, ever not do, just like brushing your teeth, and then add something to it. So what I added to the moisturizing routine was several drops of aromatherapy. So now I'm getting moisturizing and calming, you know, and now I will not put the moisturizer on without the drops of essential oil. And that took about 6 months or so,
A
Elizabeth.
habit. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
so
now it's a
good.
good habit.
Young people on TikTok, I've discovered they have something called an everything shower, where like once a week, maybe you do everything, which is kind of like floss your teeth, use those face masks, use your lotions, use your whatever. But maybe we just need to start with a something shower. So I'm going to call it like the something shower that Debbie's recommending is like, just do something and then another something. Uh,
Yeah, it's so true, Elizabeth. I love the I love the everything shower and
Yeah,
the
the
something
everything
that
shower is that, yeah, leave it to the kids. My kids are, and TikTok is making me smarter about some things. Um,
nice.
but okay, last question, Debbie, is what's something you could do today that your future self would thank you for?
Oh boy. There's so many things that come into my mind. The self-care thing is big on my mind, Elizabeth, because I have found the pandemic to be really hard on us all. And I gained some weight, and I found myself eating things that I haven't eaten for years, like French fries and banana splits, right? Like I'm, you know, and so I think there's lots of things come into my mind about little things I could do for myself. I'm trying very hard now to get my weight under control and walk more, because my future self will thank me for that. And I also do a once a week yoga class. I think all of those things will help me in the future.
Yeah.
But the big thing I do, and this is one of the things I wish I had done when I was caregiving, but I'm doing it now, and I know my future self will thank me, is, and I don't have the book in front of me. Maybe, I'm sorry, I just don't have it in front of me. I do what we call joy journaling. And
Yes.
yes, and you can do it with just a plain white notebook, and some markers. The idea is not to make a big journaling exercise out of this. The idea is to, every morning when you wake up, sit in your chair for about 15 minutes and just doodle or write whatever it is you're feeling or want to happen that day. I write a lot about spaciousness and ease, because I'm a little bit of a crazy running around doing things kind of person, and I need more spaciousness and ease in my life. So I might start my journal by saying, you know, I'm so grateful and happy that my life is full of spaciousness and ease, even if I know it's not, right? And then
Yes.
I'll draw things, like I'll draw little hearts, or, you know, little feet, or, you know, whatever it is that I don't know, makes me feel good. And my drawings don't have to be perfect. It's just something fun. I bought myself some beautiful Sharpies, all different
Mhm.
colors. And I noticed that when I first started this process a little over 2 years ago, I was drawing much more. You know, I would draw the flower out on the deck that I was sitting and looking at. I had some free form drawings that I look like a stick person, right? I'm not an artist, but I would have fun with it because the colors were good, and the point is to just have some fun and
Mm,
some time to yourself in the morning without the phone.
Mm,
without the phone. Like, don't wake up and put your phone on. Like, and I think even for a caregiver, a caregiver might need to look at their text or their messages first thing just to make sure everything's okay.
yeah.
But then give yourself 15 minutes while you drink your coffee or tea to just have a moment with yourself
Yeah.
and set your intention. I give myself one page. Sometimes I run over on two, but usually I'm just writing. I usually write a half a page at the first of the day and a half a page at the end, because
Nice.
at the end of the day, I say how thankful I am and grateful I am for the things that are in my life and the people in my life. And, if I did something especially good, I might, put a heart beside it, walk 2 miles, or
Yes.
it's like Bob Ross's paintings, right? It's your journal. You should make it, you can totally do this with your journal. Just write
Yeah.
what you want.
Well,
Write what
yeah, there is plenty of space on these pages that they could definitely I like the term joy journaling is I love that. And I
Yeah.
love that you
But
bookend your day with it.
yeah, but your book is really good because it has prompts that help you get started.
Yeah,
And
if
I think
people
that's
if they
really
don't know
important.
where to go, they can do that. But you could also, yeah, make it great. Put your gratitude and everything. I love that. Debbie, thank you for sharing that. This has gone by too fast. I think there's been a lot of really good nuggets in here, as I knew that there would be when talking to you. So I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing to try to change and improve the landscape, particularly for working caregivers of older adults. And just thank you. I look forward to watching to see what happens next.
Well, thank you too, Elizabeth, for all that you do. And I feel a lot of people say things to me like they're not exactly in our world, like we're in this world, and they're like, wow, it's so great what you're doing. And I go, there's an army of us out here. There is an army of us out here.
An
And
invisible army, but yes,
yes,
in
and
some ways.
I'm
That's
so
becoming more
proud.
visible. Yes.
Yeah, I'm very proud to be in that army with you.
Thank you. Thank you. See you, Debbie.
Thanks, Elizabeth.